All right, everyone, it's time to be the anti-Varg. You may know him for such advice as take all the welfare that you're due and drain the system and completely cripple it, because then I guess people magically become Vikings again and they'll talk to trees and so forth. This is realistic, according to some people's standards. I like the dude, but I think his family rearing and his agriculturalism and stuff like that is better than maybe his fiscal advice. I'm just saying. If you want to have a society that's run by freedom, of course, I guess that's where we differ. I think he sees that more in the sense of the tribe, and I see it as more, hey, fucking leave me alone, don't tread on me. If you want a society to prosper that has values with regards to freedom, liberty, individuality, etc., You've got to improve yourself. One of the things that holds us back as a society, first and foremost, is shifty business with regards to government. It's not just the feds that do this, by the way. The government will take a bunch of money from you, taxes are high in most parts of the world, and then give you some of it back but make it conditional. It does this to the states as well in the U.S. For instance, the drinking age is 21 in the United States. There is no federal drinking age, but it's magically always 21. That's because if a state says, no, I think that 18-year-olds should be able to have a beer, they can go off to war, they can smoke themselves to death, but you're telling them they can't have a Budweiser. So they drop it to 18. What happens? They no longer get their highway funding. Their interstate highway system won't be funded, which means that they have to pay huge amounts of money, which means that they would have to do what? Raise taxes, and the people wouldn't like it. They would change the administration of the state, and then they would restore the drinking age to 21. It's effectively a trap. The government does this to the states, and it does it to individuals. What I would say is to drop a vice and develop a new skill in order to make your way towards liberty. If society is comprised of people that have more skills, they're more self-assured, they're less unhealthy. Well, there goes the universal health care argument, because you don't need it anymore. Your society is a lot less sick. If people aren't scarfing down the corn binders, the corn syrup, if people aren't getting fucking fat and diabetic because they're eating themselves to death, if they stop listening to the so-called body positive horse shit, which is actually just, hey, eat yourself to death horse shit, you're healthy at any size. Yeah, you're 400 pounds and can barely breathe. You're really healthy. That makes a lot of sense. Your heart is under stress 24/7. Your blood pressure's twice what it should be, and your eyes are bleeding. That's healthy, though. Be positive about yourself for your short, miserable existence. If propaganda is ignored and combated, if people become more skilled, learn how to grow food, learn how to cook food, get together in your communities. The other thing, it's a paradox. To have an individualistic society, you also have to have a sense of community, but it's a voluntaristic one. Associate yourself with people who have comparable ideals and or skills that pad yours out. You know how to grow food, your neighbor's really good at canning, and Margaret over there is really good at cooking things. Well, you've just formed a perfect trifecta. You help to teach them the basics of growing things, and Edgar can teach you both about how to can things, and Margaret can show you some cool recipes. Or you can just divide the labor. You've formed a voluntary association that is more efficient, more cheap, and will provide a better quality product than any store will, and it's right in your community. Go to the store. I just grew the tomatoes that I need. Edgar's canning them right now. Margaret's preparing to make pasta. Perfect, isn't it? You've formed a voluntaristic community, and you've increased your individualism, reduced your reliance upon government. Well, you didn't need to go to the store as many times. Fuck the mask mandate, you never went to the store. You didn't need to, because all you wanted is things you can grow and process yourself. It's a better society. Drop a vice. There's a huge problem with obesity. Right now people are dropping dead. Most of the COVID deaths are old or fat. Fatness is second only to being ancient and fucked up health-wise in terms of comorbidity. What if you lose some weight? Lose 5-10 pounds, or a couple points off your BMI, whatever that is. You were obese, now you're just a little bit chubby. You were chubby, now you're normal. You were of normal weight, now you're kind of on the slender side. Isn't that great? Isn't it wonderful? By the way, most vices cost money. And the reduction in your money forces you to potentially work harder, be more reliant on government, doesn't it? Maybe you need it as like, oh shit, I got a shoestring budget. I have to beg the government for this, for the food stamps or whatever. But you're smoking Marlboros. You're spending like $10 a day smoking. Or you're drinking a bunch of Budweiser, or, you're addicted to gambling or something. Well, fucking stop. That could be easier said than done. Having struggled with addictions in the past, I know about tobacco usage, alcohol usage, did drugs, although the psychedelics, they're not physically addictive, so I don't really think that counts. Never got addicted to gambling. I never saw the point. You paying $1,000 to sit in front of a machine and pull a lever like an orangutan. Okay, that's blackjack. I think might be entertaining until you lose all your money to a coke fiend. Slot machines, never understood them in any way, shape, or form. Lottery is like a tax on the stupid. Drop a vice. Drop a habit specifically. Lose some weight, gain a new skill. If everyone were to do this within society would be so much goddamn better. It gives you more latitude, both vertical and horizontal mobility, because you got a new skill. It gives you enjoyment. You're healthier, potentially, depending on how you've changed your life. Society's healthier, and you need less government. Everything is more efficient when it is localized. If you were to divide labor in a small community, let's say you have a village of 100 people. There is no government effectively. I know this is a utopian statement that can't actually be achieved outside of very, very small groups that tend to be possibly inbred over time. I acknowledge that. I'm not an anarcho-capitalist. But let's look at the economic side, the efficiency side. Small group, 100, 200 people in a small community. They're in a valley or on an island somewhere. They can more effectively divide their labor locally. They don't need faraway trade. They don't need travel. They don't need diplomacy. They don't even need a currency, technically. They can organize everything locally and survive and thrive. When you add more convolution to the system, like with a welfare state, how do you do that? You have to have a middleman. There has to be paperwork and a bureaucracy involved in a legal system involving a state or even a non-state entity. There will always be a vetting process. There will always be the math involved. There will be lawyers. There will be accountants. There will be bureaucrats. Each time you have a person who's being paid to do any form of labor in the transfer of wealth, you're losing efficiency. So if I grow my crops and I go to Edgar and I say, I just grew these, I'll give you some of these crops and you can them and you can take some and you're canning it for me. So we're dividing the labor. I'm the one that grows, you're the one that cans, and then Margaret over there cooks. There's no loss of efficiency. You have voluntaristically carved up the labor according to whatever metric you want. There is no middleman. You're not paying somebody else to determine how many cans of tomatoes Edgar gets because he's doing the canning. You're not paying a bureaucrat tomatoes to determine that. You're much more efficient. Society's better when as much as possible is local. Schooling. I would advise you to say fuck the public educational system. Unless you are in a fiscal or other situation where you cannot otherwise not rely on the educational system. If you have the money, private school or homeschooling. At the very least, work a few extra hours and hire a tutor to pad out the education because your child's not learning civics. Your child doesn't know anything about civics unless they take senior law. They're not talking about the Constitution. They're feeding them fake history. They're feeding them at this point woke fake math too in some schools. It's horseshit. They're gonna graduate and not know anything of any value. Other than basic history. They'll know, what's the importance of the War of 1812? Hey, who was president during the Civil War? They'll have memorized basic things that everyone knows anyway. If they have any casual interest in reading, they would already know. They're dumbed down. Hire a tutor. Pad them out. Encourage them when they're at home instead of burning their mind out playing video games on the metaverse and giving their DMs to Zuckerberg. Fucking get them a guitar. At least they'll have one usable skill. Hey, you like music? You want a keyboard? Just make sure to keep at it. You'll probably make more money in a fucking subway station with your guitar than you will in any job that a regular public education will qualify you for. You've just gained some upward mobility. Hey, I made more than I would flipping burgers. It's kind of cold, but I'm thinking about saving up and becoming homeless in Orlando instead. It's arguably better than the alternatives for a lot of people in Gen Z. Yeah, sorry that the boomers ruined the job market, by the way. Drop a vice, become less reliant. You're less reliant on substances. All those substances, the government taxes them and regulates them. You're less reliant on public systems in general. Fuck public transport too, buy a bike. Work closer to home. If you have to take a pay cut, but then you're not paying for the bus every single day to go to work, you'll save money. Yeah, I was making 20 bucks an hour. Now I'm making 18, but I don't have to ride public transportation. I've moved up in the world. I'm making less money, but I'm saving more. Ultimately, that would be a good goal. So I would do the opposite of the take whatever the government gives you thing, because the government's not giving you anything. It already took it from you. It's giving you a portion of what it took from you. The best thing that you can do, if you have any mobility at all, is learn new skills and quit your vices. For instance, I'll give an anecdote really quickly. I've quit drinking. That saves money. It certainly saves me long-term, health-wise. Most people who drink any reasonable amount will die at some point. They'll get fat and have a heart attack. They'll have liver failure or something. Well, I decided to quit. Saving money front end, saving money on healthcare long-term, extending your usability, your useful life, potentially, although a lot of that is genetic. New skills. I've been trying to learn how to cook. I know that that's very basic, and sometimes I cook things that don't look great, although most of them taste pretty good. I will admit Indian food tends not to be eye-catching so much as it is, tonsil-catching, or taste bud-catching, rather. But it's a way to process. Like if you can grow a bunch of vegetables and then you know how to turn it into something tasty, you just cut out a trip to the store. All you did is you bought your butter and your rice and shit there. Growing rice, by the way, not as easy as it sounds. I don't know. I tried it once, didn't really work, although some of it naturalized, and now there's the odd Canadian rice plant around the fringes of the property in Rutland. I have no clue how that happened. It happened with sorghum as well. There was a time when it was growing on the lawn, actually, and it was covered in ergot. Could have had some fun with that if I had had enough. That's what I would suggest. Make yourself more marketable and less reliant. Especially if you're younger, you're in college, you think your schedule's hectic now, unless you're putting yourself through with a full-time job. Trust me, that extra time can be used for great things. If I could go back and change one thing, like have the foresight and prescience, I would have started my literary stuff when I was back in college, when I had more free time. Would have been able to pay off my student loans by now. Based on the income from that, with or without, by the way, a social media audience. Would have been great. Wish I could go back and do that, because then I'd be sitting pretty. That's about all. Peace out.